What if everything you see already happened a few seconds ago? Let's explore why.
If the speed of light were significantly slower, the universe would immediately lose one of its defining characteristics, immediacy. Reality, as currently experienced, relies on light to transmit cause and effect almost instantaneously across human-scale distances. Slowing light would not simply dim the cosmos. It would stretch existence itself, inserting delay into every interaction, every observation, every confirmation of reality. Vision would no longer be a real-time sense. Seeing an object would mean looking into its past, even at short distances. A person standing 10 meters away would appear as they were moments earlier. Facial expressions, gestures, and movements would arrive late, creating a permanent lag between action and perception. Human interaction would feel disjointed, as if everyone existed slightly out of sync with one another. Communication would require anticipation rather than reaction. The sky would change profoundly. The sun would no longer rise as a sudden event. Dawn would become a gradual revelation as sunlight crawled across the atmosphere instead of flooding it. Shadows would stretch unnaturally, lagging behind moving objects. The moon's reflected light would reach Earth with a noticeable delay, turning lunar phases into slow-motion phenomena rather than predictable nightly features. Astronomy would become an exercise in extreme historical reconstruction. Looking at the stars would mean seeing events not just years or centuries old, but potentially millions of years removed from the present. The universe would feel more archival than alive, a museum of light where nothing could be trusted to represent now. Cosmic explosions, starbirths, and galactic collisions would still occur, but their visibility would be divorced from their reality. Physics itself would need reinterpretation. The speed of light underpins relativity, causality, and the structure of space-time. A slower light speed would compress the boundary between cause and effect, making simultaneity even more elusive. Events could occur long before their consequences were observable, challenging the idea of accountability in nature. Cause would precede awareness by an uncomfortable margin. Technology dependent on light-speed signaling, electronics, fiber optics, satellites would suffer immediate disruption. Computing systems would slow dramatically as internal signals lagged. The concept of real-time processing would disappear, replaced by delayed response architectures. Precision systems like GPS would fail entirely, as positional data would always be outdated by the time it arrived. In this universe, reality would feel heavier, less fluid. The delay introduced by slower light would force existence to operate with patience rather than immediacy. Nothing would arrive when expected. Everything would be slightly behind itself. Human civilization is built on synchronization. A slower speed of light would dismantle that foundation. Communication, coordination, and trust all depend on timely information. With light moving sluggishly, societies would be forced to redesign how they function at every level. Conversation would no longer be intuitive. Spoken words rely on sound, but facial cues, body language, and visual feedback would arrive late. Social interaction would feel fragmented as reactions never aligned with actions. Negotiation, debate, and emotional connection would require deliberate pauses, enforced patience, and predictive empathy. Misunderstanding would become common, not because of language, but because perception itself lagged. Transportation systems would face unprecedented challenges. Traffic signals, visual indicators, and navigation systems would all operate on delayed information. Pilots and drivers would respond to outdated conditions. Autonomous systems, reliant on rapid sensor feedback, would struggle to function safely. Travel would slow, not due to mechanical limits, but because perception could no longer keep pace with motion. Warfare would transform dramatically. Real-time targeting would become impossible. Command decisions would be made using incomplete, delayed intelligence. Battles would resemble strategic chess rather than dynamic combat, with long planning horizons and minimal improvisation. Stealth would gain immense value, as delayed detection would provide extended windows of advantage. Conflict would become slower, colder, and more calculated. Economies would also feel the strain. Financial markets depend on instant data flow. With delayed light, prices would reflect outdated conditions. Arbitrage would lose meaning. Trust in market signals would erode, pushing economies toward long-term valuation rather than rapid speculation. Trading would become conservative, favoring stability over speed. Media and information dissemination would lose immediacy. Live broadcasts would no longer exist in any meaningful sense. News would always arrive late, reshaping public perception of urgency and crisis. Societies would adapt by valuing verified trends over breaking events. Panic cycles might diminish, replaced by delayed but more reasoned responses. Psychologically, humans would change. Patience would become a survival skill. Impulsivity would be punished by delayed feedback. Cultures might evolve toward contemplation, planning, and long-term thinking. The concept of urgency would soften. Life would feel less reactive, more deliberate. In such a world, civilization would not collapse, but it would slow, mature, and harden. Progress would favor foresight over speed, resilience over agility. Humanity would learn to live not in the moment, but slightly behind it. A slower speed of light would deeply unsettle science, particularly the pursuit of objective truth. Observation would no longer align with reality. Experiments would unfold faster than their results could be observed, forcing scientists to operate in predictive mode rather than empirical certainty. Laboratory science would require recalibration. Measurements dependent on light, spectroscopy, microscopy, laser-based instruments would suffer delays and distortions. Cause and effect relationships would blur as results arrived long after experiments concluded. Scientific validation would rely more heavily on models, simulations, and probabilistic reasoning. Space exploration would be dramatically affected. Communication between Earth and spacecraft already experiences delay. A slower light speed would magnify this problem exponentially. Deep space missions would operate in near-total autonomy. Commands sent to probes might take years to arrive. Responses would return even later, turning exploration into a one-way commitment rather than an interactive endeavor. The concept of simultaneity would erode further. To observers witnessing the same event from different locations would see entirely different versions of it, separated by meaningful time gaps. Truth would become relative not just in perspective, but in chronology. This would challenge legal systems, scientific consensus, and historical record-keeping. Astronomy would become a discipline of inference rather than observation. The night sky would represent a layered archive of different eras, with closer objects appearing more current than distant ones. The universe would resemble a time-sliced mosaic rather than a unified present. Predicting cosmic behavior would rely on extrapolation rather than confirmation. Even fundamental constants would feel unstable. Relativity, quantum mechanics, and electromagnetism are all intertwined with light speed. A slower light would alter energy thresholds, particle behavior, and atomic interactions. Chemistry itself might shift subtly, affecting reaction rates and molecular stability. Matter would still exist, but its behavior could feel less predictable. Truth, in this universe, would be provisional. Knowledge would always trail reality. Certainty would be rare. Science would become an art of forecasting rather than witnessing, placing immense value on theoretical frameworks. Yet this limitation might deepen intellectual humility. Knowing that observation lags behind existence could foster a culture that respects uncertainty, accepts approximation, and prioritizes long-term coherence over immediate proof. In a universe where light moves slowly, humanity itself would evolve differently. Biology, culture, and philosophy would adapt to a world where feedback is delayed and certainty arrives late. Human perception would rewire. The brain, forced to operate with lagging visual input, would develop predictive processing as a dominant trait. Anticipation would replace reaction. Instinct would favor pattern recognition over immediacy. Reflexes would matter less than foresight. Social structures would value planners, strategists, and thinkers capable of operating without instant confirmation. Leadership would shift toward those comfortable with uncertainty. Charisma might give way to credibility built over time. Reputation would matter more than spectacle. Art and culture would reflect the delayed world. Visual art might embrace motion blur, temporal layering, and fractured perspective. Storytelling would emphasize consequence over action. Music, less dependent on light, might become the dominant emotional medium, grounding humanity in real-time experience. Philosophically, existence would feel less present-focused. The idea of now would lose clarity. People might define life as a continuous overlap of past and future, with the present existing only as an internal construct. This could foster deeper reflection, patience, and acceptance. Spiritual traditions might reinterpret light not as immediacy or truth, but as memory. Illumination would symbolize understanding that arrives late but endures. Wisdom would be defined not by speed, but by alignment with long-term reality. Importantly, humanity would likely become less reckless. With delayed consequences harder to ignore, actions would be planned with greater care. Short-term gains would lose appeal. Long arcs of cause and effect would dominate decision-making. A slower speed of light would not make the universe darker. It would make it quieter, heavier, and more contemplative. Humanity would live slightly behind itself, always catching up to what has already happened, learning to move forward not by reacting faster but by thinking deeper.